Hey viewers, can anybody just let me know when you hear me? All right. So today I welcome you all on my channel, viewers, and I'm going to be talking about the planet Saturn in retrogression. So how does that give you the result if it is retrograde in your birth chart? So I'm going to be sharing today what exactly does that mean and how is it going to be impacting you if it is in different signs in different houses. So I'm going to be explaining that. So before going there, please don't forget to subscribe my channel. Do hit the bell notification. You can be notified from time to time. You can follow me on the Instagram, on Facebook. I have a page, so you can just follow us on Real Astrology there as well. So today I'm going to be talking about the planet Saturn. Yes, the much sorted channel, I would say, sorted planet that is Saturn. So what exactly does this planet do to one and all? So this is the chant and the meaning that I have shared with you. So you can just go through this before we start. Om Pram Prim Pram Sa Shanishwaraya Namaha. It's not Pram, it's Pranga. We have to say G towards the end. Prang. Okay. And I'm well, don't worry, but I can't be online with the video on. Okay. So what does this retrograde mean? I have made several parts. I have made on the planets which are retrograding in our personal chart, how, in different houses, how they react, what does this mean? I've made the part one in the retrograde series. You can go back in the tutorial section and watch that. You will get to know about that as well. And the meaning and what exactly does it do if it is if a retrograde planet is in different signs. A general video I have made part one. Then I have made on Mars, Mercury, Venus also, because there are only 5 planets which can turn retrograde. Rahu and Ketu are ever retrograde. So for Saturn and Jupiter, they are the only planets which are left. So today I'm going to be covering Saturn and then Jupiter once it's going turning retrograde next month. So I'll be making closer to the time in the sky also when Jupiter goes retrograde. I'll be making that video as well. So what exactly is this Saturn? How is Saturn going to be when it is in retrograde, in retrogression? See, Saturn is a planet, we must understand, Saturn is a planet of discipline. Saturn is the responsibility for your actions, how you are persistent towards reaching your goals in life. And wherever Saturn sits, that house is where, you have to strive hard for success. And a retrograde Saturn builds the character to accept small gains in the long process of success. So whenever a planet is retrograde, it forgets its own significations. As you all know, it forgets its own significations because it is it is not behaving the same way it is supposed to behave. Suppose Saturn is a planet of responsibility. So Saturn will give you some kind of sense of responsibility to finish the goals. Okay, Saturn is in the current life. See, all the planets are karmic grahas. We must understand all the planets. But when a planet is in retrogression, it is like bringing forward those karmic relationship or the karmic connections even more strongly from unfinished business. That suppose we are, what is retrogression? We have to go back and do certain things. Like suppose we are moving towards our vehicle and we have forgotten, or we realize after reaching the car, oh, I forgot the car keys. So this is something that you can't avoid. You can't go and drive the car without the keys, isn't it? So you have to go back, fetch the keys, come again, sit in the car, start driving and move forward. Okay. So going backwards is something which you have already done. You have already traveled that distance from your home to the car. Now here you have some goals that had left unfinished in the previous life, which were not fulfilled. You must understand. And Saturn is one who is going to make you finish it, whatever said and done, you will have to finish whatever said and done, the task that you have not fulfilled in the previous life. So, how you do it, is it going to be the hard way or it's going to be an easy way? Definitely depends on your personal chart. How your personal chart is, what is the placement aspect, which house your Saturn is, which sign Saturn is in. Are you a Sadisati born? So all those factors will modify the result of this Saturn retrogression. But definitely Saturn retrogression is going to be always making you aware of your responsibilities in a very responsible manner. Saturn direct also is generally, it definitely impacts us, in a manner where, we have to do things, we have to perform our karma. But when Saturn is retrograde, it builds, our character in such a manner that, it leads us to success in the long run. We will realize that Saturn retrogression is not actually a bad transit, it is a bad placement. It is just that we have actually got an opportunity to address our demands and responsibilities of our life. So, as you know, Saturn remains retrograde for 41 days in a year. Saturn remains in a sign for 29 months, approximately 2.5 years. So when you have seen it retrogrades for 10 degrees, so that means 33% of the population is born with Saturn retrograde. So it is considered to be a very normal phenomena. It is a very common phenomena, and most of the people you will find this are written next to the Saturn in your chart. So Saturn actually is a planet which it sharpens you also, sharpens you. Whatever challenges you're going through, it actually makes you very persistent also. Okay, I know many people were waiting for this video. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm just trying. If I fumble, if I miss out on something, please forgive me, because I'm just recovering still. Okay, now coming to I'll share the screen as to what exactly happens when Saturn is retrograding in your first house, second house, third house, and so on and so forth. So you can just consider your Saturn wherever your Saturn is. You can see, irrespective of the sign, I'm not covering the sign, but I'm covering the houses. All right. So if at all you have your Saturn in your first house, this is your first house, and if R is written here, and if it is here, this is the first house. See, in the South Indian chart, I'm just taking from Aries because these are fixed. So houses, I don't know what ascendant you are. So if it is in the first house, so I'm just taking Saturn retrograde in your first house. So what happens when Saturn retrogrades in your first house? See, this shows that you are not too flexible. You're too rigid about whatever, you're going through, whatever you're born with, your personality, basically. When it is in the first house, it means that you are behaving in a very indifferent manner. You have a lot of ego issues, you have a very strong character, but at the same time, you must understand that Saturn retrograde means, see, for Saturn in the first house means that you are going to be very perseverant. You're going to be consistently doing and working. But whenever a planet is retrograde, it forgets its own significations. So instead of being delaying factor, this Saturn will be bringing about a lot of energy in you, a lot of um, you know, to finish off the task, you have that tendency to be more, fast rather than being very slow. Okay, so this will bring about some flexibility in you. You are serious, you are indifferent, but at the same time, this Saturn will bring about some speed in your life rather than making you slow and bored in life. You're not a bored character, you're not being very introvert, also. You must understand that Saturn is retrograde, that means it's going backwards also. It's going backwards means it's going towards your 12th house as well. So there is some unfinished business that you have to complete related to your 12th house. So if there is any sign, you have to check if it is Taurus or it is Aries or Gemini. So related to that particular sign also, you have certain things that you have to perform and you have to finish. So it could be anything. It could be that you have to, maybe, you have to do something, you have to gain some expertise, you have to complete your you know uh, humanitarian causes you are participating in, or maybe there is some kind of performance related to your weak points that you have to figure out. You're definitely going to be less spendthrift when Saturn moves into the 12th house, towards the 12th house. So it curtails you being, maybe you are very miserly also, could be. Okay. And if at all there is something, maybe there is a Scorpio sign in the 12th house. I'm not covering all the signs, just giving an example. So there can be that you are, you're easily able to understand people who are plotting against you, who are talking against you, who are, backbiting against you. So you have a lot of that intuitive energy also. Okay. So first house transit, basically, first house placement of Saturn is definitely going to bring speed instead of bringing the delays and frustrations. And you will be a very indifferent kind of a personality. If Saturn is retrograding in your second house, let's see what happens. The Saturn is in your second house. The second house is the financials, the consistency, the processes, the money, the family, the values. And here with Saturn going there, you become very materialistic. Okay, you become very self-centric also. It might bring about some denials, limitations, disappointments in accumulating of wealth. You're not able to. You're exerting a lot of pressure on yourself, on your family also. You're being very possessive about your your wealth, your money, your future. You're very concerned about. You're very insecure about these things. So with Saturn in the second house is also giving you a very indifferent personality, because as I said that it goes backwards. So when it is going backwards, it's coming towards the first house. Okay, when it goes backwards. So with this Saturn in the um, second house, I'm not covering the aspects and all right now, because then it'll be a very long video. But yes, with Saturn in the second house, you do have a very indifferent approach towards earning or making money also, because you have a lot of impatience. Saturn gives patience. With retrogression, you lose that patience. You want everything to come to you easily. You want everything to go fast. You want things to happen quickly. But at the same time, you will have some kind of, some kind of things that you have to complete related to your financials. Okay. So this Saturn retrograding in your second house will give you a lot of energy to make money, could be through some unfair means also, because Saturn is discipline, but you lose that discipline and that mode. When Saturn is retrograde in your third house, so Saturn retrograding in your third house, as we all know, is your performance, your connectivity, your communication, your how you perform. Okay. Also, your siblings. What is your relationship with your siblings? How many siblings do you have, and all that we see from this third house. Now, here, you know what happens? You have not taken care of your siblings maybe in the previous life. So now the mental attitude is that you have to spend more time communicating with your siblings, with your family, with your people around you, communicating. Saturn gives lack of communication. Remember, Saturn is a very indifferent kind of a planet. Saturn doesn't like talking much. Saturn is very conservative. Saturn is introvert. But when it's retrograde, you become more talkative, you become more communicative, you want to convey your mind. And now you want to be with your siblings, with your family, with your people around you. With Saturn retrograde, it is a positive. Now it becomes a positive one, because here Saturn is like, being the part of the family now. Saturn is being the part of the family, and Saturn wants to spend more time with the family also. Because this Saturn is not a separative Saturn now anymore. Saturn retrograde means just the opposite of what Saturn is. So here, Saturn becomes very, very close to the people, very comfortable with people. Also, the efforts are in a very different manner, very unconventional manner. Okay. So here, definitely Saturn is moving towards the, when we see it's retrograding, depending on degrees, it is going backwards. It's going towards the previous house. So when it is going backwards, this means it's going towards the second house. Okay. When it's going towards the second house, it means that you have some connectivity with your siblings related to your wealth, money, business. Maybe your financials are because of your siblings, okay, or with your, peers or your classmates. You have some kind of connectivity forming because of this Saturn forming a connectivity with the second house, right? Because it's going retrograde. It's also said that it gives the result of Saturn whenever any planet is retrograde, it gives the result of the Karaka. Karaka, that is the 10th house. Maybe, you have a very indifferent kind of behavior towards your workplace, your work culture, your co-workers. Okay. Or maybe you have some kind of communication gap with your bosses or seniors, or maybe you're very communicative. Could be, depending on your sign, which is rising, which will set the tone of the whole horoscope, of course. Which sign is there in the 10th house? Which sign is there in the third house? So depending on that, if it's a very extrovert sign like Gemini, so you're very communicative with people. You want to convey your mind, right? If Saturn is retrograding in your fourth house, let me make here. So taking this as the first house. So if Saturn is retrograding in your fourth house, see, fourth house is the learning, basic learning, essential learning, as we say. Also land building, family happiness, you're questioned with your mother, residence. Okay. When Saturn is retrograde, you tend to have a home for sure, your own house. If it's not there, then you definitely will. Saturn direct would have given you an old house, but Saturn retrograde gives you a new house also, I've generally seen. Now here, what is happening, you have to take care of your family. You have to get connected with your family if Saturn is retrograding in your fourth house. You must have not completed your education in the previous life, maybe, or you have been really moving, shifting a lot from the, uh, residence. You have been changing, not many times you've changed your residence. So when Saturn is in your retrogression in your fourth house, so it's like, you have to stick on to your family. You have to get connected with your family even more. You have to do for your family. You have to you or maybe you are fond of being in the family, because direct Saturn gives you a separative tendency. You are very secluded, you are cut off from your people, you're very indifferent. But here, when Saturn is retrograde, it is like, you become more comfortable with your family. You want to spend more time with your family. Okay, so this is going to be giving you a house of your liking, stability, speed, and you are fond of antiques also. Okay, so Saturn retrograding in the fourth house, generally I have seen, is considered to be good for the mother also. Connectivity with the mother or with your family members, it's good. Saturn, if it's retrograding in your fifth house, the fifth house is your hobbies, solutions, entertainment, your creative energies. Let me write here as well. Saturn retrograde. That means retrograde, if at all you're not aware of. So when Saturn, also this is Purva Punyas and your children also, Saturn in the fifth house denotes. Now here, what has happened, you've not uh, got the support of the past lives. Support as in, like, you don't have, it's the Purva Punya, the good karma of the past life. Maybe there is some ill karma that you have performed to your children, to your ancestors, and because of which you're here to read that. So you have to do something more, or maybe you have to do something which is apart from the regular one, uh, related to this house. So your hobbies will be very different. Maybe there are lack of children, or children are there, but there are problems with the children in retrogression, and Saturn is. You're lacking discipline, or the children are lacking discipline, and you get very irritated because of that. And this also, I have seen, people become very, maybe some technical inclination is also, because this is also house of education. So some kind of technical education you can go in for when Saturn is in the fifth house for education purpose. Definitely, Saturn retrograde brings about a lot of um, skills. You want to actually do things which are, you're thinking out of the box. Retrograde is out of the box. So you're very open to the world, but at the same time, you're not getting that kind of support that you wish to. Retrogression in the fifth house, Purva Punya house, is definitely bringing about that lack of perseverance and lack of persistence in you. So you have to be very, very persistent. You have to have that stable mind to do things, to attain that, to quit that karma that you have not been able to, that you're born with, the lack of support that you're born with in the fifth house. Um, Hobbies could be something very different, something which you have not, you're not actually, something very irregular, something very unconventional kind of hobbies. Creative, yes, you can be creative. At the same time, there can be something amiss. What if Saturn is retrograding in your sixth house? You must know that sixth house is owned by Mercury in the natural zodiac. So that is also going to add up. Fifth house is the house of Sun, Surya. Surya and Saturn are not friends. So when Saturn and Mercury combination comes in, Saturn is in the house of Roghrina Ripu, that is the disease. Now, this is the house of disease, responsibilities. This is the house of uh, your enemies, your debts, your loans, your uncles, your aunts. So all that is the sixth house. So When Saturn is there, it actually helps you combat those diseases, combat those loans and the debts that you've taken, combat as in like you will be able to pay up. Now it is retrograde. So it means that it is moving away from taking care of your disease and your debts and all. Now it is not in that position to give you the result to combat all those areas. You are very lonely and you're not in that position to cut down on the problems that you're facing. Saturn retrograde, Saturn in the sixth house, malefics in the sixth house generally are good because they help us combat things, negative things of life. But when Saturn or any other planet, which is like malefic, suppose Mars is also there, so it loses its potency because it's the Dusthan after all. So in those sthanas, retrogrades do not do well, I've seen. So with Saturn going retrograde, it's first thing, it's moving backwards. It's going towards the fifth house. So it is losing the potency to give the result of the sixth house. Fifth house is the house of sun, uh, Surya, and children get impacted negatively because after all, this is a negative Saturn, powerful Saturn in retrogradation. So when it is going back, so the Vakri Drishti is not considered to be good. Okay. So this will give you problems in your, means it will enhance your disease, loans, debts. So you should avoid getting into any kind of, anything related to your loans, litigations. You should not get into all those things. You should actually avoid when Saturn is retrograding in your sixth house, eighth house, 12th house. You should avoid doing things related to those. But in sixth house, of course, you should take care of your health and your loans. What if Saturn is retrograding in your seventh house? You see, seventh house is interaction, public dealings, how you interact with people and how people interact with you, how people look at you. And this is also your matrimony. This is also your partner, your business partner. So maybe, in the previous life, you have had problems with your partner, with your in your relationship, in your, lack of faith, some kind of, we can also say there can be some problems related to your partner or suspicious partner you got. That is also quite likely. So here you have to negotiate with these seventh house significations even more with Saturn being retrograding here. Saturn retrograde as it is, is uh, making you get, more communicative, basically. You are more into going forward in those areas, talking to people. You're not anymore introvert. You want to convey your mind. You want to say things now openly, right? So with this Saturn in your seventh house getting retrograde, it might bring about a partner who is very, who's not old as it would have been, older than you if it was a direct Saturn. Now here Saturn is retrograde. So the partner could be young, the partner could be more energetic, maybe, more sensible than what you are. And also could be that uh, the partner is from some other community, quite likely. The same people, come across, or they are fond of people who are more towards, the other community, or anybody who looks different. Okay, something to do with your partner's looks also. Or you are in a business which is definitely a very different kind of a business, something which you have not um, uh, thought of doing, and suddenly you think that you have to do this out of the blue. It's also the house of business. Um, how you manage with your partner, business partner. So you're very communicative, and the partner is also quite uh, good at negotiations. Okay, quite quick. Seventh house is basically the ruler is Venus, and here it's Saturn is Digbali also, and Saturn is in exaltation also. In a way, we can call it an exalted Saturn in the seventh house, even if it is in Aries. We consider the Digbal of this Saturn. Saturn is here very, very strong. So here, Saturn is going to be giving you some kind of relationships which are going to be very long lasting ones. It's not that you will be having some relationships which are temporary, and you but they will be definitely very unconventional kind of relationships, because retrogression is always unconventional. Asma is asking, what about love relationships for the Cancer rising? See, for Cancer, relationship is the main focus. Saturn retrograde is attachment, not detachment, Asma. So whenever Saturn is retrograde, you must understand that people will have good relationships as compared to a direct Saturn. Direct Saturn will bring about maturity and sensibility, but at the same time, it detaches you from the relationships. And for Karka Lagna, especially, the seventh lord ruler is Saturn. That then it will modify the effect. Okay, I can't be. I'm taking as the fourth house ruler, so it's very difficult to say for specifically for Karka Lagna. Now, coming to the Saturn, if is retrograde in the eighth house. Okay. Saturn retrograde in the eighth house. Saturn retrograde in the eighth house. Okay. So Saturn, if is retrograding in the eighth house is problems, obstacles, chronic pains, chronic diseases, as we all know. It is also the house of occult sciences. Okay. Um, Something which is deep hidden underneath. Its ruler is Mars. So Saturn basically in the eighth house is good. Saturn in the eighth house is considered to be good for longevity. But when it is retrograde, it is going backwards and spoiling the significations of the seventh house. But it does it does modify a little bit of health issues if you have it. It helps curing. But in the eighth house, as we all know, any malefic going to the eighth house is considered to be good. But when it is in retrogression, it's sort of forgetting its own significations and not giving that result that we require. So it gives health issues also. It gives, it gives problems also in your, to relate to your health. And eighth house ruler is Mars. Mars and Saturn are not that, I will not say they are unfriendly, but of course the other signs will modify. But yes, it gives you strength to deal with the obstacles and problems that you have, for sure. But it does definitely spoil the significations of the seventh house. Maybe the person has problems in marriage, doesn't get married, delays and frustrations, because retrogression means going backwards, and backwards is the sign, is the house seventh. Also, Saturn is from the eighth looking at your 10th house. I'm not covering the aspects, but here it's required. Why? Because it's looking at the 10th house in Vakra Drishti. So whenever a Vakra Drishti is there on the 10th house, and 10th house is also Saturn's, significator house. So it actually, gives you a lot of frustration at the place of work, or maybe changes at the place of work. A lot of changes you will go through. Saturn is the karma karak. We must understand whenever Saturn is Retrograde, it gives you unconventionality attached to your work. Maybe you've studied something, you're working something else. So it is definitely going to be bringing about some problem related to the work for sure. Retrogression is a phenomena which is, it's like, it's crooked, it's twisted, it's not the straight thing. We must understand it's a phenomena which is not right, it's not straight in a straight line. So whenever there is a retrogression, you see in a horoscope, Jupiter retrograde, Mercury, Saturn, Venus, Mars. So whenever they are retrograde, they forget their own significations. I'm repeatedly saying this. Why? Because here you will have a very different approach to your work life, your culture, and your traditions. Okay, it will bring about some disheartening experiences in the eighth house, especially sixth house, eighth house, 12th house. Saturn doesn't do well in retrogression. Okay, how Saturn retrograde. I will be taking up the queries. Hi, Shweta, how are you? So, okay, Saturn, if is retrograde in your, because this is a live session, guys, and I keep saying hello to my family because my audience is my family. I know the new viewers might get irritated, but I have to say hello to my friends and family here on the YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Okay, and being so supportive of me. See, in the ninth house is what? Dharma. Ninth house is fortune. Ninth house is father. Ninth house ruler is Jupiter. So in a way, Saturn is in Jupiter's sign, in Jupiter's house. And when Saturn is retrograde, you forget your dharma. Dharma as in like you do not follow the normal routine kind of a job. You're totally different. You don't follow the dharma, or you don't follow the religious belief system that you are born with, or there is something out of the box, something different, unconventionality attached to your belief system. You don't want to follow the rituals, you don't want to do things the way others are practicing, lighting the diya, or going to the church, or going to the mosque, or going to the gurudwara. Not like that. You're totally, uh, you're spiritual, but you're not religiously inclined. Okay, the traditional values that you have, you're different. Also, this gives you an approach towards learning new things, new subjects, occult sciences, or something very different, out of the league. You want to do things which are very different, and your friends are very different as well. Okay, and you're very fond of traveling. Could go wrong depending on the sign that you are born with. Okay, um, Saturn, whenever is retrograde, you must understand. Uh, Depends on what rashi it is in, what sign it is in. If it is in an inimical sign, so retrogression will give good results. Okay, it will give good results. Suppose it's in Leo, so Saturn retrogression is good, but here Saturn retrogression is having some problem here. Why? Because it is moving backwards and it's giving the result of the eighth house also. So there can be some health issues, something attached to your life which gives you troubles, or it gives you growth only after persistence. A lot of persistence, a lot of agony you have to go through, and then you have to, then you rise. Okay, rise only after doing things persistently. So do not lose hope. Also, this gives growth in the latter half of life. I've seen. Okay, coming to Saturn retrograde in the 10th house. What if Saturn is retrograding in your 10th house? 10th house is growth, your name and fame, topmost position. How do you reach topmost position? Because you're working, right? This is the house of profession, satisfaction, content. So you have not got that contentment level you've not achieved in the previous life. So now you want to redo things. You want to stabilize in the place of work, at the place of work. You want to be very careful about your work and your job, and you're very possessive about your job. You're very attached to your job. You have that, uh, feeling that, you should finish off everything quickly, reach to that level. You're going to be feeling those, energies of attaining that success. You can go crazy also, really crazy, in achieving your goals. So because you don't want to follow any kind of path, righteousness or anything, you just want to, by hook or by crook, you want to achieve that level. So this Saturn retrograde can give you that, and you can go blind in doing things, achieving that goal. You should actually be doing some charity. You should be more towards doing things for others. If you have the Saturn retrograde, you should work through that, through those energies. Yeah. Saturn is, in its own zone here, because Saturn is the Karaka, the significator of the 10th house, the profession. So it definitely gives you a profession, but it gives breaks also. It gives something unusual in your profession. Maybe you've studied something and you're working something else, some other department you go to. Maybe you've had engineering background and you suddenly change and you become a management employee. Something like that can happen. Also, Saturn can give you, because this is the zone where Sun and Mars become Digbali. So this can bring clashes with your bosses, your seniors, some too much of, heaty, uh, hot-headed arguments often with your bosses and seniors. Okay, so you should lie low. You should keep calm to attain that kind of chemistry with your seniors. Doing it slowly. Saturn retrograding in your 11th house. What does it bring? Okay. Saturn in the 11th house is achievements, gain, success, brings benefits. In the 11th house, what is 11th house? 11th house is friends, gains, also humanitarian causes, So when the house of gain, where the conflict is easy to spring forth even from the most unexpected quarters. Negation of lawful gains will bring in wrath. Maybe you have to work overtime with no compensation. You might face some kind of problems with the seniors. You can have some kind of clashes with the seniors often. Your friends might just leave you in distress suddenly. They just change, their attitude changes, or some indifferent kind of friend circle you are involved with. Some friends who are not like you, very different kind of friend circle you move around in. But yes, you're attached to them. You're very attached to them. You depend on your friends actually a lot. Could be that they're there by your side whenever you need them. Okay, they're very helpful kinds. So if we see Saturn going retrograde, coming back to your 10th house, it moves backwards. So this can bring about problems with the seniors and your co-workers also. It can bring about clashes here and there. So you have to maintain calmness, peace. Don't have too much of, desires. Too many desires will lead to fall with Saturn retrograde. You might be thinking out of the box. You might be thinking big. You want that name and fame, and you want that to achieve those goals by hook or by crook. But you should follow the righteousness, the path of righteousness, which is very difficult for you, which is obviously it's unlikely with Saturn retrograding in your 11th house. So you should take care of your speech. You should take care of your mental setup when you are interacting with people. It can be that people backstab you also by the end of the day. So make sure that you Don't rely on your own people too much. They might just uh, backstab you. Okay. Comes the last one, that is Saturn retrograde in your 12th house. The 12th house is spendings, expenditures. Your weaknesses also are seen from the 12th house. How you treat people, um, how, your, this is actually the final house. This is the house of the final departure. So this can bring about you coming back to life in a way. You are when Saturn is in the 12th house, otherwise it's like, it's the Jupiter's house, Venus exalts in this house. Saturn going there is like bringing back to life. You were uh, on the verge of attaining that emancipation, but with Saturn retrogression, it is bringing you, pulling you back to the uh, world, and it's bringing you back to the desires. When Saturn is in the 12th house, it is not giving you that kind of emancipation, or some kind of connectivity which leads you to that moksha, because Saturn is a planet of detachment and now it's retrograde. So suddenly you feel that you want to be, being in the 12th house, expenditures go up, you become very materialistic. Suddenly your desires will, with the passage of time, with the passage of age, they start growing. You start growing as well. Depending on the sign, the Rashi which is there in your Saturn's 12th house, definitely that'll modify the effect. But yes, it is more towards the desires. You want to fulfill those desires because it's in retrogression and coming back to your 11th house. So and it is very good for settling overseas also from the place of birth where you are born. You want to go abroad and settle. So this is a good one, right? Because if Saturn is direct here, the chances are less that you settle abroad, because Saturn brings about problems and troubles in the overseas countries. But if it's in retrogression, you become very successful. I've seen, or there are overseas clientele that you cater to. Also, there are some unusual bed pleasures that you get with Saturn retrograde also here, because it becomes like Mars when Saturn is retrograde. It behaves like Mars. All right. So that's it for the Saturn retrogression. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And please, you can just make a note of this again. Om Prang Pring Prom Sah Sanishcharaya Namaha. This is the chant that you should be doing. And definitely I'll be making the video on transit of Sun also soon. I'll try doing it tomorrow maybe. So, and I'll be getting back to my normal self soon. All right. Thank you everyone for being here. Thanks for watching. God bless you all. Stay blessed. May Shani bless us all. Om Tat Sat.